We are Ron and Levon Masters, and we were residents of Rapid City in 1972. We moved here in 1969, and we were living out on Jackson Boulevard out in West Rapid, just right at the edge where the bridge is there, where the water goes across. It goes underneath the bridge there.
We were right across from the creek.
Right across from the creek. The creek was a place where our children enjoyed very much. They would spend some time fishing golf balls out right across from Meadowbrook.
Yeah. And building a fort right down by the creek.
Building a fort. There were times when I would rush home from work with still my professional clothes on, run quickly across the street and catch me a couple of nice trout before she would call me to supper. At the time of the flood, we had 5 children, and maybe, Levon, you could tell their ages.
Our oldest was Karen. She was 14. Steve was 12. Joanne was 10. Jonathan was 8, and Timothy was 2. And we were the kind of family that we would love to go camping in the hills. We took our vacations in the hills. We did a lot of things together as a family.
Yes, I would have to say we're very, very close as a family, and loved our kids, and of course had great times and great memories as we do today. Of course, on the night of the flood, I had been involved in a softball game in the softball league here in Rapid. When that was suddenly the skies turned black, and the next thing we know, it didn't start with a sprinkle, it started with a downpour. We fled, everyone just hurried to their cars, and by the time you got to your cars, you were soaked. And we drove home, and shortly after we were home, some of the kids were already in bed, weren't they? Because the older Karen was babysitting.
But then it started raining so hard, and the thing that was devastating about that whole evening was they didn't know how severe it was. The mayor had gone to check the dams, said it was fine on Canyon Lake, and so we felt that we possibly would be okay where we were. But then when the lights went out and there was flooding in the basement and the telephone went dead, we had been talking to the chief of police, and he said, "Please come and stay with us. We don't want you to stay there by the creek." So we thought, what should we do? Well, that made the decision for us. We thought, we can't stay here. We'd better get out of our house.
And so we did. We went out. The kids were in their pajamas. We took our sleeping bags for the kids. We were going to put some of them on the floor over to our friends, and away we went. Unbeknown to us, the dam had burst. When we crossed the bridge there on Jackson, the first wall of water caught us, and the next thing we know, we are trapped over in those big, gigantic cottonwood trees that are on the north side of the road there. And our vehicle was pinned into that. It was on a tilt. The back end of the vehicle was up higher than the front end. And the next thing we knew, quicker than what we can say, the water was right up to our shoulders, and the next thing I know, my head is against the top of the vehicle on the inside. At this time, our oldest son, spoke, and the last word we heard Steve say was, "Dad, this is all in God's hands." And that's the last word that we heard from Steve before we see him again.
Well, and then he started looking for a way out. I don't know how to swim, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just trying to think about what I was doing. My head was already up to the ceiling, and water was coming in fast. I was starting to breathe in water. And he found his way out by pushing his feet on top of me and then pushing down the window, because it was a roll-down window. Fortunately, it wasn't electric windows. And then you got out and pulled me out.
Yeah, I went across, floated across her. The window was only open just enough. They say if you can get your head through anything, your body will go through it too. The splunkers will tell you that. So we made it through. I made it through, and the first one I pulled out was Levon. And then I pulled out Karen. There was a little teeny tree behind one of these little tree behind the big cottonwood, and I put Karen's feet in that, and the next thing we know, there's no, the vehicle is inundated. The water now is running higher than my knees. Another wall of water has come across us. So the rest of it, when Karen was, when I pulled her through that narrow, she had our little guy, Timothy, in her arms, and when I pulled her through there, she lost him. She lost control. She couldn't hang on to him when I pulled her through there. He was the 238th, the last body that was found. His little body went from Rapid City west clear over and was found out in Rapid Valley.
And then we hung on for like from 10:30 at night until about 4 in the morning. And we didn't know if the vehicle was underneath. We hung in the tree, and we didn't know if the vehicle was even underneath us most of the time, and that was just a night of horror, which we have put in our book. And it's very difficult to describe. We will never, ever forget it. It's etched on our minds forever.
All of the debris that we went by us, we heard people crying, we heard people screaming out for rescue. We saw, on one occasion I saw the body of in a flash of lightning, saw the body of a man float by. We saw every kind of debris. I can still hear the hissing of the gigantic propane tanks that had come in from west of Rapid out in the Brayburn addition. And like Levon said, we just held on for that night and did the one thing we did to encourage ourselves is we started singing. And we started singing some of the great hymns of the church. Great is thy faithfulness, and how great thou art, and some of the other great hymns of the church that we thought we need songs in this night. The only thing that would buoy us up in the horrors of what was happening, thinking of course that the rest of our family was going to be lost. Now, to say
well, and then when morning dawned, in fact, it was beginning to get light. It rained all night long, and we were just soaked. We were filthy dirty because of all the debris and dirt in the water. And morning dawned, and we began to see part of the vehicle we had come in, the Scout, and we heard a voice from inside there. We could not believe it because 3 of our children had still been left in there.
Trapped, we knew, yes.
And we couldn't get them out because the waters were rushing so fast. And we heard a voice.
And I got down on my knees and laid my cheek in the water that was just below that opening that was there. And I laid my cheek in the water, and I called into the vehicle saying, "Who is it? Who is it?" And at this time, our daughter Joanne, the 10-year-old, floated across and came right up to my face. I will never forget all my life the look in her eyes. And the first thing she said to me was, "Daddy," she said, "God has called me to be a missionary." And I said to her, "Honey, he surely must, because we realized he had preserved her life. She had lived in a little air pocket in the corner. Her 2 brothers had perished beside her for lack of oxygen. The man at the funeral parlor told us, "Your boys had no water in their lungs. They had just passed out from lack of oxygen," and yet she was able to be preserved. And we want to go on to say that she did fulfill that call in her life and has served 18 years out in the Pacific in mission work. And
along with her husband, and now they have 2 daughters, and they're teenagers.
And our other daughter, our oldest daughter, that we were able to spare with us in the tree. She too is a minister, is involved in Christian education, is a music teacher, and has served on staff in a large church on the West Coast.
As well as her husband is.
As well as her
husband.
husband.
And they have 3 children.
Right, those
so
are our
life
grandchildren.
is going on. Karen married a Timothy. Their first son's name is Jonathan, and we have a nephew whose name's Stephen. So we have those names back in our family again. But one thing we did, I just want to say one thing about the rescue operation in the city. We thank all of the people who work so tirelessly to rescue those who are in danger. And they did a wonderful, excellent job. In fact, one of the men almost lost his life coming to rescue us. And the National Guard were out that night, and I just can't say enough to commend them. What a wonderful job they do. But Ron and I afterwards had our struggles, we had our grief problems, as everyone does, and everyone struggles through that differently. I grieved differently than Ron did, but we made the decision. We had said when we got married, till death do us part, and we decided we would not make any drastic. In fact, 80% of the couples who lose a child end up in divorce. And we said that's not going to happen to us. We will work out whatever we have to work out, because love brings us through. And we also made the decision that we would choose to trust God because we love Him instead of becoming bitter.
Yes, and the end result of that has been is that God has opened some wonderful doors for us. For nearly 6 years we traveled in over about 25, 30 states. We spent some time in Canada. We spent some time in the Pacific, sharing our experience at doing sort of grief recovery and seminars and retreats, and God enabled us to touch thousands of lives, and we heard many heart-rending, heartbreaking stories that have said, folks, if you made it through, because we said we're no special people, we're just everyday ordinary people. If we made it by God's help, whatever you've gone through, God can help you through it too.
By choice.
By choice. You have to choose. We are kept by the power of God through faith. And though I did have some struggles of faith early on, I remember in a process of time, I said to myself out loud so I could hear myself, because for a while I thought, do I still know what I believe? Because it just seemed to disrupt my whole belief system. And yet there's one day when I remember saying out loud, so I could hear myself say it, God, I still believe what I believe. I know that you love us. I know your word is true. And at that, I felt the first wonderful relief when I could reaffirm my faith in God. And it's faith in God that keeps us through all of life's tests and trials.
And we look forward to eternity when we will again be reunited with our sons and we'll be a family again.
Yes.